Hey everyone. I just wanted to. I started, and then I realised the camera was very dirty, so like I cleaned it a little and came back. Anyway, so I just this is not my fit and fun mental health, which is in an hour, but this is the discussion that I put online about just sharing some of the things that came up in the peer supporter for peer supporters calls this week. So, we've scheduled it for an hour and we'll see how long we go, right? I don't know. So I wanted to start by saying yesterday in Fit and Fun for Mental Health, I shared that life had been a bit tough lately, and I think sometimes as like peer supporters or, people who are standing up to support others in our community, even if we're not peer supporters, I think sometimes what we forget to do is, I think sometimes we just forget to take care of ourselves. And so like when I shared yesterday, I shared about my vulnerability of realizing that I have what some people might call depression, and I needed to do something about it because it was a little overwhelming. And what occurred after that, I got a little nervous afterwards. I was like, whoa, did I share too much? Was that a war story versus, how I got through it story? And I think, I shared the fact that there were things I started to do to take care of me that made it easier for me to be able to get through what was happening. And I think one of the beautiful things that occurred as a result of yesterday is that many people reached out and talked about that they had similar feelings, maybe not checking out their medications and what it would do to us if we took too much, but I'm talking about heart meds, right? but people started reaching out and saying thank you for sharing, thank you for being vulnerable, because like I've been feeling about a bit this way. And I had someone reach out and share that they had been busy supporting people and were all worried about the people they were supporting, and they were doing stuff about self-care, but didn't realize there was this underlying piece in the background for them that was kind of eating away. And so I think one of the things that is occurring through this pandemic is that many people are having that like noise kind of sitting under other stuff, and maybe we're missing it until it like starts to scream at us. And I think, truthfully, that's what happened for me. I was going about my business, like I was working, I was talking to friends. I knew that like I was tired. I knew that like I was struggling, but maybe not how much. And I think one of the things that is really important for us, and I'm just going to say it like that, I think it's important for all of us to take notice of those little signs, like before they become big signs, like the little signs about I didn't want to talk to as many people, versus the big ones about where it, like got to on Friday night. And so I think one of the things that, peer workers and I were talking about this week, and Charlotte as well, because Charlotte's on those calls, is how do we actually take care of ourselves in these times, as well as taking care with other people, because they're unprecedented times. And today, Easter, and many people celebrate that, or people are celebrating Passover. And I want to say to those out there who are celebrating any kind of time, like religious time, like take care like of yourselves, and think about ways that you can connect with families today, even when you can't physically be there. So, I've seen some cool things on Facebook where people are taking photos and sending photos, or getting on FaceTime, or making comments about, like, it's okay, we'll catch up next year. And so I think there's a beauty in us being creative and staying connected. I know that my family are spread on the other side of the world. Well, not all of them. So I have a niece in Calgary, so she's celebrating Easter today. I have a family in Australia who celebrated yesterday. And then I'm here. So, and then I have friends all over the world. So everyone's celebrating at a different time. So it's been a really interesting experience, because for me, I've always done a virtual kind of connection with my family at this time, and it doesn't occur as much different for me, but I know that many people are experiencing different things because they can't physically be in the same space as their family. So, thinking about how do we stay, how do we do some of that connectedness? So, I went out this morning to the dog park, and I haven't been for a couple of weeks, and that's a real self-care thing for me. So it was really great to get out there again. And when I first got there was nobody else there, and I took a little video, on Facebook and shared that, because that to me says, okay, you just take one step at a time, kiddo. You get back out there. Kiddo. I'm 54. Kiddo. I think I'll always be a kid, right? Always wondering what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'd love to see how many of you know what you're going to do when you grow up. But anyway, I was out there, and on the way home, today I've been eating at home every day, and I've been cooking and doing a good job. This morning I was like, nah, I'm having Macca's. And for those in North America, that would be McDonald's, but us Aussies, we call it Macca's. It was shorten everything. And then what I did was I rang a friend, and I stopped at their place on the way home, and they put a chair at their door. And I got a chair out of the garden and sat, 20 feet away. And they sat in their chair chatting to me. I was eating my breakfast while I was chatting with them. And so, we can still get a little creative about how we... And look, Charlotte put up Macca's. She just spelt it wrong. Mate, if you're going to put it up, spell it right. M-A-C-C-A-S. Not M-A-C-K-E-R-S, but M-A-C-C-A-S. Macca's. See, Charlotte puts this up for me, so it looks like I'm writing stuff, and I can't always do that. I'm loving seeing people join on that I haven't seen for a while. My mate Lynn's on from Reno. Can't wait to come to the casino. Linda, Diane, Rob, Chuck. My mate Chuck. You guys won't see it as Chuck, but she'll get it. Karen's up. Rob's up. It's kind of cool to see people joining. And so here's my quest for you guys. Ask me a question. Come on. What's the question you want to know? You all know I'll tell you whatever now. So let's have a conversation, not just me chatting away to you guys about stuff. But I'm going to keep talking about self-care while I'm thinking about this and connectedness. But Charlotte needs an Aussie dictionary. Hey, maybe what I do is at one point get the Aussie dictionary out, because I have one, and we'll do a little master blast in Aussie. I could do that for one of my Fit and Fun mental health. Just do a couple of words, couple of slang words, and see if you guys could guess what it is. But I think what brought me to Ontario, well, I'm not in Ontario. I am in Winnipeg in Manitoba, but a number of years ago I did some work for the Mental Health Commission of Canada, and I did focus groups all the way across Canada, and I ended up in Alaska, and I just, I got a job up there. I see your question, Linda. I'll get to that. Anyway, I got a job in Alaska. I was in the US for a while. And a couple of years ago, my mate, my business partner, Charlotte Sitnick, went, want to start a business? And I went, sure. She goes, you have to move to Winnipeg. And I went, sure. And like people in Canada go, Winnipeg? Why did you move to Winnipeg? Because it gets a bit chilly in winter. For those of you, it's a bit like Alaskan temperature and to turn up the wind a lot. So that's how I got there. Linda's asked me when we're having happy hour. Well, I don't know. What's tonight look like? No. Message me offline and we'll have happy hour. But I think, sometimes self-care can look really different for different people. We're starting to talk about that. And today, I've got to admit, and Glenn McDonald might like this one, but if it's the Glenn I'm thinking of, but I was I was flicking around the TV. I had like about 40 minutes before I was going to do this, and I'm like, yeah, I want some silly TV. I've just completely stopped listening to the media at the moment. That's part of my self-care. And I found this show called House of Drag. And it came on after RuPaul, and it was on a channel called OUR, I think. OUR, in my accent. But it was House of Drag, and it's done in New Zealand, and it's done a bit like Big Brother, where they have 10 drag queens come into and live in a house for 10 weeks. And I started watching it. I could not stop laughing, because like I'd forgotten the New Zealand sense of humour. Like you think of drag queens and then you add New Zealand humour and inappropriateness abound, because, we don't have all those niceties in the Southern Hemisphere. Be careful what you say. And I could not stop laughing. And the other cool thing about that show was season 2 was they had a cisgender woman. Actually, I think they had 2. They definitely had 1. And they also talked about her being a fab cisgender woman, like female at birth. I hadn't heard some of these terms before. Well, I heard cisgender, but I hadn't heard the female at birth kind of discussion, and I hadn't really seen in traditional drag shows that. So I realised that watching that sometimes is going to be self-care for me, because it brings me back to the funness of being in the Southern Hemisphere. See, I really am just rambling today, but that's self-care. Like, the walk this morning in the park was self-care, because my dog, Roo, well, you've all seen Roo a little, I swear she has anxiety, right? So first couple of years, really tough time before I got her, had to carry her around for a number of days, and she's a little bit scared of people and other dogs. And so often when we're at the dog park, she's attached to my leg. And today there were no other dogs there, and a friend came with her dogs, and obviously we were walking, yelling across to each other because we weren't walking particularly close, and Roo was running around like a puppy, and she hardly ever does that. So I think it's interesting. I think the animals are noticing the difference too. I've seen all of those memes where there's stuff about like animals like dogs going, just leave me alone, I want to go back to licking my ass and sleeping, and I watch my dog, and she follows me from room to room. So I used to do Zoom calls in this room And I'd only be in here for a couple of hours. Now I'm in here a lot. And like she wants to be in here with me. So if I move, she kind of comes with me. And Glenn, thanks for saying part of self-care is watching my posts. That's pretty cool to. And a few people have said that like it kind of makes them happy seeing these things. So I really appreciate you guys joining. It is, like Charlotte's being me, saying, this is part of my self-care, spending this hour with you all. It is part of my self-care because I get to connect differently. And I can't wait for you guys. Hopefully you will join me when I get off this call and jump on the next one. Because the next one will be the Fit and Fun Mental Health. And Wilsonette may have a surprise for us all. I don't know. We'll just see. Because I've heard that Wilsonette was quite popular. And so I thought, well, she may have to come back and make another appearance. We'll see. I said walking the dog was part of my self-care, dropping in and, being physically distant from like friends of mine, but being able to see them and be able to talk to them made a difference. I think I started yesterday. I bought it, a couple of months ago, this little booty body. Yeah, I know. My booty is not small on the best of times. This booty body exercise thing. And so yesterday I'm like, just Priest, come on. So it was lots of butt, lots of abs, lots of other hip, abductors, adductor stuff. And I woke up this morning and there was a little bit of soreness, but not a lot. And I went, obviously I didn't work hard enough. So I worked a bit harder on that today. Another thing that's self-care for me, and please, there is, another thing that is self-care for me is cooking. So I've been doing a bit of cooking. So yesterday I was doing so anyone want to drop by, I'll give you my address. You can stand outside and I'll push a plate across or something. I don't know. Was a Thai Indian chicken curry, and last night I made banana muffins, and today I don't know, I was cooking something else. So it's I have to be careful about cooking, right? Otherwise I'll be one of those memes where I'm the svelte, whatever, model at the start of quarantining and then the little Teletubby at the end. I don't think I was ever the svelte model type, but I don't want to go back to being the larger version of myself. Many of you who've only met me recently would not know that I used to be about 100 pounds heavier. Well, actually not at the moment, maybe about 80. But I wasn't really happy. And I don't know, 3-4 years ago now, something like that, I realised that I was in the wrong body and changed all my clothes. And, I still have this body, but I wanted to do something different to go, this is me. And I think that's one of the other things that I'm thinking about through this time is to think about how do we be our true authentic selves. True authentic selves sounds so bleh. How do we just be us and be okay with us? Mate, North Queensland, heading off to work. Glad you're going to have a smile. And I think one of the things that to remember as we go through this is we actually get time to reflect on who are we and what do we truly want. Not just in this moment. Well, this moment's super important, but have we been being true to ourselves the whole time, right? Or are we this version of ourselves that we're being because we think other people want us to be a certain way? And I know that I do that at times, right? I do stuff like I act a certain way at times because I think that's what's expected. Now, don't get me wrong, most of the time I'm me, but there are times I don't tell people how tough it is, or I try and like just try and be a little happier than I normally am or whatever, because I don't want people to think differently of me. And I saw one of the comments, on my post that someone wasn't sure about telling people how they really felt because they were worried about what people would say. And so I think one of the lessons, I think the gifts of this whole pandemic, and I know that sounds weird talking about a pandemic and saying there's a gift, but maybe this is the time where we can really take a little bit of time to think about what is it that we want to create in our life? What is the most important thing in our life? What are the things that we want to focus on? Is it the same things that we always did? Or do we want to take stock of things? Like, I shared that, I don't think I shared. Like, in all reality, I have, I don't know, maybe shallow's the word, I don't know. Like, sometimes pretty faces, like, have me get excited, right? And there was a beautiful woman in my world, beautiful, and I was scared about like being committed because what if I miss out? Oh my God! And for a number of weeks now, I've been thinking about actually this amazing person, and I left it too late. So sometimes this gives us time to actually reflect on what it is that we want for our lives, what's important, what we want to create. And even if we get to a place where we go, oh, I screwed up, I missed that, that's something special. As I said yesterday, we're still going to be friends, so it's all good, right? But, and I get to look at what my life looks like moving forward and take those lessons and learn from them. So, I see a comment from Glenn about to thy own self be true. Yes, this is the time, if we're not being true, or even if we think we are, just to take a look at, are we? Are we truly? Have we been being our true self? Or have we been living a life because we think it's important to someone else? Or what we say is going to upset people? Or, now, don't get me wrong, we want to be respectful and responsible, but it's also about what is important now. Many people are losing the jobs that they've had, and maybe their stability for the future isn't there in the same way that they had it. So do we actually get to sit down and go, was that the important piece in life, or was it the family that we missed out on time because we were so busy working, or the friends that we didn't get to see, or is work the be-all and end-all now for people who maybe have put it at their forefront, or is it not? I watch my brother at the moment, who's always put that I'm going to sort this stuff for the future. And, I know he's done it for the right reasons, and he's looking at it now going, oh, this looks very different now than what I thought it was going to. And, he's not working now, and I see him struggle a little. Hey, bro, if you watch. Love you. And we, I talked once before about we haven't talked for ages, and now we talk every single day. Just about stuff, about what's happening, in our lives. What are we thinking about? And so I think people are reconnecting in different ways. So we have the ability, right, to do those things. And along with that comes some interesting is probably not the word, right? Talking to some of the peer supporters this week, they have been talking about they only have a certain capacity for being on the phone or on Zoom or Facebook or whatever. Whereas they used to see people in person and it wasn't quite as taxing for them. And now that they're doing it virtually, that like this, at least they can see people. I'm looking at you guys just chatting to myself. Oh, here's my offsider. You get to see my little offsider here. Hello, Roo. I thought you could share a little visit from Roo because she is probably one of those super important things in my life at the moment. Anytime, actually. And truth be told, I think she's like, why are you still home? You're never home this long. But I think we get to we also want to take a look at how much time are we spending on the phone, on computers, connecting with people, and is that adding to our tiredness? Because I think sometimes it does. Because it takes something out of us to do this. I know that, the days where I've got a virtual training, I've got the Fit and Fun for mental health, I've got peer support for peer supporters. I know that can be quite draining as well. So I think it's super important for us to kind of think about those self-care pieces, because that sneaks up on us too. And then I think it was earlier this week, I was chatting with someone who's doing some training with us, talking about they're doing the super overachiever self-care piece. And then they're like, but how much is enough and how much is too much? And when does it become an obsession? And what's that? And so I think there's pieces around that we also want to take a look at. And here's the thing, I don't think there's an answer. When's enough? When's too much? I think it's super important that we ask those questions of ourselves each and every moment. Like, where are we sitting now? How does it feel? Like, one of the other things I don't think I mentioned yesterday is I got tired, so I went and had a sleep in the middle of the day. It's like, what? And so I think our routines can look a little different now too, but we get to find the routine that works for us. So I have friends that are now like, oh, I love working through the night and I hate working during the day. And so they've negotiated to do that kind of work with their boss. And like, who knows what that looks like when we get back to, I don't know if we're going to go back, right? It's a bit like that term recovery, right? Sometimes people talk about recovery as getting back to or not getting back to what we had before or regaining what we had. And that got a bit loud, didn't it? Sorry. And then other people are saying, well, I never had it in the first place. So it's one of those things that we don't know what it's going to look like in the future. We're all in this together. We don't know when we're going to get a semblance of getting back into what we may or may not have called normalcy in the past. I see a mate of mine just asked, when is enough for yourself? What point do you say done? Now, it depends on what the question about when is enough for yourself. Like, do you mean enough supporting other people? Do you mean enough of being here? Do you mean... Because I'm absolutely not going to, like, entertain an idea that I'm done and enough's enough and I don't want to be on this planet anymore. I get that bit me in the ass the other day, but, you know, I've put some more things in place for that. So I think when is enough for me? If I'm tired, I'm going to take a moment. You know, I've got a couple of things I'm meant to do for work, and normally I work all weekend. Those of you who know me know I do it. And this weekend I went, I'm not going to work. And tomorrow when I get up, I'm going to say to the people that I am doing work with at the moment, I didn't get it done. It's not the end of the world. The world is not going to die because I didn't get my job done today in this moment. And it will still happen. It will happen tomorrow. It just didn't happen for tomorrow morning. So when is enough for myself? Or what point do I say done? I think the place is now for me. I'm going to put some like little red flags in there. If I start not wanting to engage with people that I engage with, if I start being resentful of these times, if I start... Like, I know one of my keys is if I ask someone to look after my dog. So, I've got some notes around my house now. Maybe I'll take you for a little spin and show you. God, you might find that a little weird. But, you know, let's go and have a look. So, I have... I'm going to flick this so you can see it. So, I have a little note for myself where I do my Zoom calls. This too shall pass. And I put the date on it. And then I have a little note out here. Yes, you're coming out down my hallway. And so I have this note. A friend of mine said, put this up. She's a medium, whether you believe in that stuff or not. I am the light. I am the love. I am the truth. I am. And so... Oh, look, you can see me. I've got it on my bathroom mirror too, coming back in here. I think one of those things is just popping little notes. So I have a little note put in my bedroom. You don't need to come in there and see that. Oh, I'll turn you around again so you can see me. I have a little note in there that says red flags. And so one red flag is okay, two is not. And so I put a little note about what I was going to do if those red flags happened. So I see someone I know put life's a shit show today. Really happy if you want to put in here like what's happening. I know that's public, you might not want to, or really happy to kind of chat to you offline at some point. And yeah, life can be a shit show some days. And I think it's one of those things to think about, what have we got in place if life is going to be a shit show? I just need to take a sip of something because I've been talking forever. What are we going to put in place? How long have I been talking? Yeah. What are we going to put in place if it is a shit show? So it's like, not that maybe you talk about red flags as a, like, you know, to determine a shit show day, but what are those things that we can do for ourselves in those moments that are really tough? You know, I could do an ad for the Copeland Centre and talk about RAP, Wellness Recovery Action Plans, or I could do a kind of push for... Charlotte and I are developing something called Focus on Wellness at the moment, where it's just looking at what have we got ready to rock and roll if things are a shit show. Do we have people we can reach out to? Do we have things we're going to do? And in all honesty, sometimes we can have those plans and they can look amazing and we can still get into those troubled places. And so my piece is I'm going to take a moment and think, but my thing is there are times the shit show comes up. And even if we've got things we're going to do, sometimes just sitting for a sec and taking some quiet time and going, yep, it's a shit show. Yep, this isn't fair. Yep. Because I think it's okay to have those moments. And I think one of the things that someone reached out after my conversation yesterday, a few people did, was that I make not being okay. And I think that's probably one of those things that I really hope that people take from today, that we don't have to be perfect. We don't always have to have our shit together. And we don't always have to pretend we do. I think what I hope that through this pandemic, that everyone comes out with more compassion and empathy and is willing to talk about the times they don't have it together. Because I ran some Charlotte and I ran some stuff for oil and gas company last year, and we were talking to people out in the oil and gas fields about getting your human back on, and for me that means actually talking to each other. Wow, someone's just jumped in from Romania. Welcome, Drugason. Way to go, Romania. That's pretty cool. We're in Canada here, and we've got some people from the US, some people from New Zealand, Australians. Oh, we're all over the place. But one of the things, when we were at that oil and gas company we were talking about, is how many of us, when we have a physical stuff, someone asks us about it and they chat about it and they're like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But how often does that occur? And sorry, I'm moving the camera a bit, trying to get comfy because I don't have a camera holder, so I'm holding it, a phone holder. I keep going to order one and forget, so you get a bit wobbly on this. But I think the place is how many of us talk about it when we're not doing as well with our mental health stuff. And I think peer supporters talk about it more. But I don't know if the average population talk about how they're not doing as well. And I think one of the biggies that happened with that oil and gas company is the executives, I don't think, believed that heaps of people would be chatting about it with us. And once we started the conversation, people would just chat. Everyone was talking to me about their own or talking to Charlotte about family. And I think that's what I want to create, a world that talks about it. And I think the weirdest thing with this pandemic is people are starting to talk about it, starting to show that they don't have the perfect family and the perfect life, and that life can be tough at times. And so I think that's what I want to have us do, right? I've talked about it sometimes before. I'm not sure if I've talked about it on this Facebook Live, but right, we have this, I call it the grocery store phenomenon, and it's not the same at the moment, but when you go to the grocery store and the grocery store person goes, hi, how are you? And you go, good, thanks. And they go, okay, and they keep scanning. Because I do it, Like sometimes if I'm not feeling good, I do it. Or if I just want to see what will happen, I do it too. But the grocery store person goes, "Hi, how are you today?" And I go, I go, "Not good. Today's horrible." And lots of times, like grocery store go, "Oh," and they're like scooting your groceries through, that'll be $97.21, please. And it's like they ask the question, "How are you?" or, "How you feeling today?" Whatever, however it's worded. But they don't really want to know the answer. And my hope is, as we go through this pandemic, that everyone actually gets passionately curious with each other and they want to know the answer to that question of, "How's it going? How are you?" And I just was checking out the time on my Fitbit because I know I have to go and do Fit and Fun for mental health at, in 20 minutes or something, 15 minutes. So I think what I'm asking people is that when we ask those questions, like whoever we are, wherever we are, don't ask it if you don't want to know the answer. And I see Rob's talking about like grocery store people have a script and we can't live by script. I think that's the piece. That's one of the messages I want to get across through all of this is, let's start being passionately curious about each other again. Let's get off that hamster wheel of, "Oh my God, we have to go, and actually care about our neighbour. Yeah, Diane, most people are being polite. I don't want people to be polite. I want people to be real. Like, if you don't want to know how someone is, don't ask. Unless you really want to have a conversation if someone says, "I'm not good." And I think that's what I mean. Charlotte and I have been throwing around the term, "get your human back on." Because that's what we really want to happen, is that people go back to where they cared about their neighbour. They knew who their neighbour was. They wanted to have a conversation. They wanted to smile. I saw I don't know if my friend Rose is still on. I saw a name pop up, but she sent this picture of her and her neighbours having wine, and they were kind of all down the block, a couple of metres apart from each other so that they could do the physical distancing piece. And I thought that was lovely. Or across the street, or like, I want to get back to us, right? And, I see Karen talking about, she's been asked that question a lot, and people haven't always, I can't always see all the comment in here. I want people to really care about each other. Yeah. Diane's like, yeah, if you said I'm doing like shit, they'd go, "Oh, okay, off you go." So I think as we engage in conversations, like, we only get to control ourselves, right? So we get to be the people that when we actually ask someone, we really want to care. We really care what they've got to say. I keep talking about being passionately curious about other people. And I think being passionately curious for me is about getting your human back on. If someone says they're doing shit, like, find out what's happening for them and actually just be with them, because most times that's what people want. And I see our friend from Romania is talking about what it looks like over there, and the rule is to stay home. And yes, we have to stay home, but we can also open our window and yell out the window, or we can be close on the phone, or we can be close like this. Like, hey Heather, I know that it's tougher, right? But I still feel close to you guys. Some of you I've never met. Like, I've not met our friend from Romania, but I feel quite close at the moment, right? I feel close to people who are sharing a shared experience. And so, you know, I love that piece I think it was in Italy, where people were playing music and singing. And hey, I don't care about whether English is good or bad, my friend. We're all talking together. And I think being together in this environment is how we get through this. I can see Heather talking about yelling out the window to your cows. Hey, that does remind me of a funny story. I'm just like, you know, I'm like a squirrel, right? Whoa, what'd you say? Yep, over there. So when I was younger, my parents used to let me eat food in their bedroom at night. I was never a vegetable person, right? And we lived on a farm at this time. And so I used to go down to their bedroom, and I would open the window and I would throw my veggies out. And generally the animals ate it. Well, one night I obviously wasn't doing a good job, and the next morning my parents told me I was never allowed to eat in their room again because the cows had all the vegetables stuck on their head, in their horns. It was the funniest thing, and I got in so much trouble. But you know, so I had to tell you a stupid story, right? But getting back to like, open the windows, say hello. I know I do it from my window. I live on the 4th floor, and people are walking their dogs down the little courtyard, and I go hello, and some people will say hello back, and some people will look at the ground and they'll walk away. And you know what? I think I'm just being me, and like, I really am at the point today, not every day, but today I'm like, if someone doesn't want to hang out with me or laugh with me or joke with me, that's their problem. It's not mine, right? Because I have some amazing people in my life, and like, it's not my issue if there's people who don't want to engage. When I go to the grocery store, I will say hi to everyone, and I will have a conversation with them. And maybe it's the accent, having an Australian accent in Canada, people keep talking to you, right? But my next little talk. But I'm always going to say hello to people. Like, I'm the person that will smile at everyone as I walk down the street. And you know what? Most people will smile back. Some people won't. But I think now sometimes people are a little suspicious. You know, what are you doing? Like, there's a little bit of paranoia happening around. And I get it. So hopefully we won't knock people with mental health issues in the future for having some paranoia sometimes. But I just, you know, as we're going to come to a close with this, right? Because remember, I have to get off of this call and then open another one very quickly. So don't run away. Come back and join us at Fit and Fun for Mental Health, right? Which is going to start in about 10 minutes. But what I ask that we all do is be passionately curious about, the people in our lives, or even strangers, right? Say hi to them. Like, talk to them about how odd this time is. Iced tea in this one, it was coffee in the other one. Like, be out there, put yourself out there. And when you're tired, like, be tired and allow yourself time. So this is our chance to connect to humanity again. This is our chance to connect back to ourselves. Like, I don't think I said, but I've started doing something about talking to your inner child. and going back and just finding out what is it that my inner child needs. And so I have a little photo of myself as a kid. I'm very cute. I might put it up on Facebook, maybe not. But I was always a little dyke. That's the funniest thing. I look at those pictures and go, who didn't know then? But I think connect with yourself in a way that finds out what's valuable, what's really important, not what's always been like swirling, but what's really important, and be passionately curious about others, about our community, about people. So where'd that come from? This is our chance to connect to our humanity and humanity in totality, like totality. That sounds a bit odd, but you know what I mean. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you so much to our friend in Romania. It's the first time I've had someone from Eastern Europe join. We had someone from the UK the other day, which is pretty cool. Please, everyone, like social connectedness in spite of physical distancing. If we stay strong and keep physical distancing up, we will be able to get back to each other quickly. Well, quickly. That's a loose term, isn't it? But you know what I mean. If we don't, we won't be connecting with each other, so like physically connecting for much longer. So hang in there, everyone. Love you all. Thank you for sharing this. This is my self-care. And just know, in about 5 minutes, I'll be back on live on this channel. And you'll be in for a good surprise, I think. So see you soon. Bye.